Hello, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Vanderpool. Today we're going to be talking about civil liberties. These are our first freedoms. Our civil liberties are our liberties that are protected from government interference. Now, the founding documents definitely had these ideas of civil liberties contained in them. So the Declaration of Independence says we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. So among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Constitution, the framers believed in natural rights. They believe rights came from nature or God, and man could not take those away. And this idea is associated with John Locke. A couple of liberties in the U.S. Constitution here. Writ of habeas corpus from Article 1, Section 9. Writ of habeas corpus means produce the body. It requires that government officials present a prisoner in court and to explain to the judge why the person is being held. So law enforcement can't throw people into prison without justification to a judge. That is a writ of habeas corpus. The Constitution also forbids ex post facto laws, after the fact laws. Okay, so ex post facto means after the fact, being charged for committing a crime that wasn't a crime when the person committed the action. So laws can't apply retroactively. So a law passed today can't make something a crime that happened 5 years ago. So you can't, Congress can't pass a law saying that anyone who owned a shotgun 5 years ago committed a crime. Okay, you can't have these retroactive laws. You also can't have what are called bills of attainder. This is a legislative act that punishes an individual without a judicial trial. Courts should decide guilt, not Congress. So you can have separation of powers there. So Congress can't pass a law saying some person or some group is guilty of a certain crime. Congress can't pass a law targeting specific groups and people like that. Now, the Bill of Rights contains many of our fundamental liberties. First Amendment, freedom of speech, press, assembly, petition, religion. Second Amendment, right to bear arms. Third Amendment prohibits the quartering of soldiers. Fourth Amendment restricts illegal searches and seizures. Fifth Amendment provides for grand juries, restricts eminent domain so the government can't take private property without compensation. It prohibits forced self-incrimination and double jeopardy, so people can't be charged for the same crime twice. Remember that these Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, so we have a few more here. The Sixth Amendment outlines criminal court procedures. For example, it talks about how there needs to be a speedy and public trial. Seventh Amendment, trial by jury. Eighth Amendment prevents excessive bail, cruel and unusual punishment. Ninth Amendment says Amendments 1 through 8 do not necessarily include all the possible rights of the people. And the 10th Amendment reserves for the states any powers not delegated to the federal government by the Constitution. And we talked about this 10th Amendment a lot when we talked about federalism. So it's very, very important that you know these Bill of Rights very well for the AP test. All right, so now let's move on to another very key amendment regarding civil liberties, which is the 14th Amendment. So let's talk about a few key aspects of the 14th Amendment. So there's a clause that talks about privileges and immunities, so basically meaning that the Constitution protects all citizens. The 14th Amendment talks about due process. It prohibits the abuse of life, liberty, or property of any citizen, and stated that states' rights were subordinate to federal rights. So basically due process means the government can't take away your stuff without due process. The Fifth Amendment in the Bill of Rights actually gives the people due process rights, but that only applies to the federal government. The 14th Amendment said that states can't take away due process rights. So it was the 14th Amendment that gave people the due process rights against the states. And then you have the Equal Protection Clause that says the Constitution applies equally to all citizens. So once again, it is through the 14th Amendment that the Equal Protection Clause applies to the states. So states can't deny either the Equal Protection Clause or the Due Process Clause due to the 14th Amendment. So an idea that is closely associated with this is called selective incorporation, which basically says that the First to the Eighth Amendments apply to the states through the 14th Amendment. Now, another concept we've already talked about is judicial review from Marbury versus Madison. This is the power of the Supreme Court to judge the constitutionality of a law. All right, legislative action. Sometimes laws can guarantee rights. You have the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. So this is really more of an example of civil rights. Civil rights talks about how the government can make society more equal. So it's how the government actively tries to create equality in a society. Versus civil liberties, which are the freedoms that we enjoy that the government cannot take away. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next video.